What about Brian White's phone call made you so intrigued and so interested in FAU?
Well, just because I've been down the street and I saw FAU women's basketball from the periphery, and I just feel like it's kind of a hidden gem. And I love challenges, so to be able to hopefully sparkle some new life in FAU women's basketball and also into the community, I'm game. So, that's our plan, that's our vision.
You obviously have a lot of experience under your belt from the Division II level, and not even just at Nova, but at University of Indiana,
Right.
UIndy.
Yeah.
So how do you feel you're really going to implement championship culture at FAU?
It definitely starts with recruiting. So we're spending a great amount of time right now identifying the right players and the right people for the system. We want players who are very coachable and open-minded and have a growth mindset. We're doing a great job so far. It's just with the climate, with the NIL, it's been interesting, but we're optimistic that we'll be able to land the right players because that's everything. And we already have our staff in place, which is really helpful. But the culture itself is going to be starting in the summer, really implementing the skill set. We want players who are very skilled, who want to work on their skill development and put it together in a whole package because we want to play fast, we want to play aggressive. And we have some players returning who definitely fit that mold. And I feel like the 3 players who are returning can really help us build that culture the right way.
From a player's perspective to now a coaching perspective, what are some things that you feel like you've learned throughout the years that you would implement or that you have implemented into your coaching strategies?
Trying to find that player who may be under-recruited, who has something to prove, because that was me as a player back in the day. And I didn't have a lot of opportunities out of college. And fun fact, the coach who recruited me is Chancellor Dugan, who was the head coach here from 1999 to 2012.
Full circle.
Yeah, and the reason why I got into coaching is because she took this job and the assistant coach I played for became the head coach and invited me to be his assistant. So really fascinating. But anyway, to go back to my playing days, I was really hungry. I had something to prove. And right now we're trying to identify those players who want to do the same thing here at FAU because, we find ourselves this past season at the bottom of the American Conference. And it takes a lot of hard work, it takes a lot of dedication, but it also takes a dreamer. It takes someone with vision and a belief in our coaching staff to help get them there. And I think that's everything when you're trying to build a program the right way.
From a championship standpoint, what do you look for in a player?
Well, I think body language really matters because you can see how someone reacts to adversity. If the fight or flight response, are they going to hang their head or are they going to, stand up taller and be ready for that next play? I think that's one thing that we've done a good job is not only trying to identify the players who bring that type of aggressive mentality or the fearless play, but also, trying to help them get there. It's one thing, it's kind of hard to teach though. It's either, you've kind of learned from adversity in your past, you've had to overcome it and you're stronger because of it. But we do try to help implement that and try to help players develop that along the way.
What's a playing style that you plan to implement that was not implemented prior and that you really feel like will help give us that upper advantage on non-conference and conference opponents? Because I feel like our conference, there's a lot of good competition. There's USF, there's UTSA, who was first overall in our conference.
Right.
So what strategies do you intend to implement that was not implemented prior?
Well, we give a lot of freedom within offense, so the offense. So we teach screening, cutting, reading the defense. It's more of a read and react offense. So it's not overly structured. So it's very difficult to scout. I worked for Carl Smesco, who was the head coach at Florida Gulf Coast University for over 20 years. He just took the Atlanta Dream job in the WNBA back in October. And I learned a lot from him. So it's a very similar style.
That was going to be my next question, was that with every great player comes an even greater coach. And with you having both experiences under your belt, who's someone, it doesn't even have to be a basketball player, it can be family, who's someone that you look up to that has helped you to become your best self as both a player and as a coach?
That's a good question. I'm a little strange because I really never had idols necessarily. Although I did back in the day, can you imagine? I thought I was going to be the first Major League Baseball player as a woman.
Really?
Yeah, I really did.
Girl power.
I know.
Good for you.
I did. I thought, because back in the day with the St. Louis Cardinals, Ozzie Smith was an amazing shortstop, and I idolized him. Back then there weren't that many female role models, and maybe that's why. So
You wanted to debunk that stereotype.
yeah, I wanted to play professional baseball. It didn't work out. But I love college athletics, and my coach, Chancellor Dugan, of course, I've taken a lot from her. And from a strategic standpoint, I would say Carl Smesko, again, who's now at the Atlanta Dream. But along the way, I think just being inspired to try to challenge myself. I didn't really have that many players or people to look up to necessarily. It was more like, I just want to see how good I can be. And I have had that same concept for our players. Like, how good can we be? And it kind of wears on teams after a while because I'm like, oh, that was great. Now let's do this too. But it's the way that good coaches coach. Like, you're never satisfied.
What's one experience you've had coaching, a good or a bad moment that is just like, it's always stuck with you?
I don't know if there's one particular thing that I can think about, but it's just constant. Like, I even tell the players in terms of body language, I look at myself when I'm watching film as much as them to see their body language to make sure and maybe that's what it is. Like, you got to project what you want your players to be at all times. So if I'm losing my mind on the sidelines, then that's probably what's going to happen with them.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, you have 8 NCAA tournament appearances?
Oh gosh, that's a great question.
Off the top. I looked
There
it up,
was a
but there was a
lot. I
lot.
think that 9 at NSU, there were 3 at UND, and then as an assistant, there were, gosh, that's a lot. A lot. Yeah.
But with that being
Right.
said, how would it make you feel to bring FAU women's basketball to their first NCAA appearance in, I believe it's more than 20 years?
It's been a while.
think
And actually,
06.
Chancellor Dugan was the only coach to take them to the NCAA
Yeah.
tournament during the Division I era. So,
Oh, nice.
but it'd be really meaningful, obviously, because we got a lot of work to do, and right now, recruiting is our #1 focus. We got to build the roster and, build it the right way so we can compete. And our style of play is conducive to having really selfless players who really want to play for each other, which is not the easiest thing to do in today's society.
Oh, 100%.
So being able to put a group together who's literally playing for each other and playing for FAU, the fruits of their labor would be priceless with the NCAA tournament opportunity. We'd have to win the American Conference to be able to get there, more than likely, but that's a challenge that we're going to take right on.
And then my last question for you, because I know you're on a little bit of a time constraint. What's one thing that you want the fans to know going into this season? Like, what's one thing that you can assure these fans can expect from this new team?
We're going to be a very skilled team. That's one thing that we really work very hard on is, knocking down open shots, taking good shots, making a layup, making an open 3, knocking down our free throws. We're going to spend hours and hours and hours training to that because I think that that's kind of a lost art now. But just the overall effort piece, like I want the fans to know that we're going to give 110% in practice every day, and we're going to give everything we have on game day. And hopefully we have a product they'll be really proud to support.
Awesome.
Yeah.